Welcome back then folks to already the final build of pack number 14 in Special Projects. The week has flown by as it always does, and as I seem to do quite often in these packs, we've got an Evo rally car, kind of rounding out the complete selection, this time an Evo 3 WRC machine. This is, as some may notice from the visuals versus the specs, a bit of a mashup, because visually speaking, this is of course a player-created livery. I've put a link to it down below, but it's replicating a real version of the Evo rally car, the number 7 in particular. For the specs though, I'm using Gran Turismo 2 as the reference there, in terms of in particular the power and the weight. So it's a bit of a mishmash of replica and nostalgia put together, which of course is something which Gran Turismo themselves do quite often. As far as the parts, well, it's a rally car, so the bits aren't too crazy, generally speaking. Of course, certain things are already fitted as standard, like the comfort tyres. As far as the weight, though, you want your stage 1 weight reduction. For the club sports, your high lift cams, stage 2 weight, the power restrictor, of course, dirt tyres or snow, depending on where you're going to take it. The ballast as well. For the semi-racing stuff, the fully customised ECU, the diff. You actually don't need any more weight reduction than number 2 because, well, the car weighs 1,112 kilos in Gran Turismo 2, so you don't need to take it any further than that. If, of course, you want to use that as a reference, as I did. We've got the anti-lag, race exhaust, filter, intercooler, manifold, pads and discs, the torque vectoring centre diff, clutch and flywheel, suspension, and for this one, you'll have noticed, if you follow my rally builds, I've actually gone for the more sequential style race transmission rather than the manual. The reason for that is because even though it's probably not as accurate, I'm pretty sure at the time this would have had something a bit closer to a road car. I could be wrong though. I wanted it to be a bit sharper. I wanted to really get through the gears, be able to have that kind of, a Ascari A10 style banging through the transmission kind of feeling to it. Of course, those who are aficionados of the car, more so than me, I could have checked online, but I didn't. So, criticise me away. But for those who are aficionados of WRC or Evo rally cars, I'm sure you can correct me depending on which transmission it should technically have. But that's the one that I've gone for this one. As far as the extreme stuff, we've got the hydraulic handbrake, of course, for extra manoeuvrability when you need it. The steering angle adapter for better turn-in as well. And for the ultimate section, well, there's nothing fitted, so you don't need to worry there. So in GT2, you're looking at these numbers, which is 1,112 kilos with 345 horsepower. So I would imagine that's probably not too far off what the real car would have had. Rally cars in the WRC kind of sphere would typically have in their later forms more like, 315 to like 325 kind of horses, but I'm not sure about this time period. I'm not as versed in the earlier WRC stuff. So again, if you're aware of what those real numbers would have been, then absolutely plop them down in the comments for other people to use if they want to. As far as the parts though, you've got the fully customised suspension of course fitted with the ride height 150mm and 170, which sounds extremely high, but as you can see, it really isn't. It's quite modest actually. As far as the anti-roll, we've got that on 4, 33 and 44 for the dampers, 2.25 for the springs, slight difference in camber, 1 on the front, 0.5 on the rear. As far as toe, I've got none on the back, and then 0.5 in for toe on the front. As far as the diff and the centre torque distribution, we've got 50-50 on that one. I would imagine everyone has their own preference there. Some people might find that too grippy on the front end, but I'll leave it down to you. And as far as the individual settings, I've gone for 10-10, 20-30, 10-20 in terms of how I've set it up. I like how that feels, but you'll have to decide for yourself. Of course, you could give it a run, and if you want to change it, of course, you could always come back to this later as a benchmark. As far as the transmission, very, very close ratios on this one, up around 155, 160 miles an hour. That should be more than enough, I would imagine, for most rally circuits. If you need to change it, of course, you could just extend that, though. As far as the ballast, power restriction, all that, no power restriction at all on this one. 67 kilos though, and I've put that all the way to the back. Still very much a front biased car anyway though. Interestingly, despite all the chin splitters and wings and everything going on, no adjustable downforce on this one, curiously. The anti-lag is set on strong, at least that's my preference, and I know everyone has their own there. And for the parts, of course, you saw us fit it, almost Subaru style. It's 555 on the point level, which seems a bit egregious, but that's it for the build. And of course, all that remains for this week is to take the car out on the dirt and show you the car in action. Well, whenever I do an Evo rally car, certain things are always guaranteed. It's kind of like doing a Subaru. you know it's going to be quick, you know it's going to be good, and chances are you know it's going to be pretty forgiving. This one, well, it kind of goes above and beyond, to be honest, in terms of how good it is, because believe it or not, this in Gran Turismo 2 form with those numbers is faster around this dirt course than my 911 RGT Porsche rally car build, which is pretty damn impressive for a car that has no way near that kind of power. And if I recall, I don't think the Porsche was that heavy either, and of course a 911 is fast under any circumstances, both on and off-road. Of course this has the advantage of four-wheel drive, but even then, the 911 is not slow, and I don't remember it being particularly difficult to drive off-road either, so this really is a weapon if you choose to use it, and I think I probably would say I prefer this one over the Evo 5 or even 6 rally car builds that I've done in the past. So yeah, it's a hell of a car, and kind of surprising I think, especially when you've got stuff like the Evo 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. still featured in Gran Turismo games, at least as recently as GT6 in a number of different forms, that this one has never been brought back. I find that quite curious because it's a pretty iconic car in its own right. So if you do use this one, I think you're really going to enjoy it because it's a hell of a car, and it's a pity there aren't more events because this thing would be a weapon for using in rally spec stuff, especially at only 555 points. That's ridiculously low for how quick it is. So if you've enjoyed this week of builds, of course show the creators some love in terms of using their liveries, commenting, liking, etc. on them, reposting them, and of course stick around in future for the next project pack, which will be 150 cars by that point, which is crazy, and of course check out the other ones which I've already done. I hope you've enjoyed the week, and I'll see you next time with more. Hopefully I'll see you sooner than later in terms of an official Polyphony update, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. And for now, thanks for watching.